Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. Our guest today is Mustapha Ben Jaafar, President of the National Constituent Assembly in Tunisia, Secretary General of the Nat'l Party, member of the government Troika. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having invited me.
So, 2 years after the Jasmine Revolution is slowing, in political terms as we speak, no government, no constitution, no timetable for elections, economic, social tensions arrive. There are also tensions between the secular and religious groups. Some believe that Jasmine's wilting.
No, you know, these are expressions that journalists use. The wonderful revolution in Tunisia broke out as a result of shared social reasons, but far from the jasmine-producing regions. We're not on the coast. That's where jasmine blooms mainly. No, the reality is that today, 2 years after the revolution, we have achieved very much. For starters, we have held the first elections, first multi-party democratic elections in the history of Tunisia. For over a year, we have done what was necessary. We have provided security, stability. From a comprehensive perspective, of course, there were some incidents of varying severity. There was, of course, the tragedy earlier about the assassination of a political leader. It was very serious.
But is there a crisis today? We hear what we're saying, 2 years, but is there a political crisis in Tunisia?
Why? Because there is a government that has decided to step down and a new government which will be formed.
Well, it's not a crisis.
No, I don't think it is. After a revolution, after all, I think these things are quite standard. These things could certainly be conceived. What happened, I think, quite the contrary, shows that politics at the moment are very much in tune with what is taking place in the political sphere in Tunisia. Following the assassination, there was a proposal by the Prime Minister suggesting the formation of a technocratic government.
You were in favor of that?
Yes, absolutely. We supported it because we felt that that was just the kind of positive stimulus that Tunisian society needed.
But it was rejected.
It was rejected. Now, as far as we're concerned, we continue to feel that that is the best option, even if it needs to be adapted somewhat by including certain political figures. We would like for that participation to be symbolic, but our partners don't necessarily all agree. At any rate, today, I think we are at the cusp, perhaps within 48 hours, I think we will see a new government which will be presented to the president. And of course, that government will need to go out and get the confidence of the assembly.
Simple question, will your party be a member?
We will see within 48 hours.
What are your conditions?
Well, we have expressed the conditions that we have clearly. First, we wish to see as few partisan figures as possible and a maximum of skilled people.
For key posts?
Particularly for those positions, yes, for those ministries. That was one of the requirements that we had stated even before the tragedy of February the 6th. At this stage, this is a clear requirement. Aside from that, we are also looking for a certain number of commitments to fighting all types of violence. This can, after all, have an impact on the entire democratic process over this next crucial phase before the elections. And of course, we have 1 year's worth of experiences co-managing with our partners from Nat'l.
Sometimes difficult.
Always difficult afterwards, after a revolution. But this is no surprise. We knew that things were difficult.
As difficult as that? You thought it'd be as difficult?
We were so convinced that even before the results of the elections came out, and as well after the results of the election came out, we already called for forming a government of national interest with all political parties. What happened was a tragic situation. In any case, we have a negative growth rate. We have a very challenging security situation. So we knew that 2012 was going to be at least as difficult because it was full of social hope.
And if your conditions are not met, you're prepared not to join the government?
If the conditions are not met, if the message that public opinion is waiting for is unclear, then naturally nothing is going to force us to stay in that government. We will weigh the pros and the cons, of course, because in addition to any given party's participation, we need to provide the highest level of guarantees for transition.
So the transition process, you had the Constituent Assembly, we're waiting for a constitution. How long do we have to wait? You mentioned 6 months, a year.
Well, first, I think we have to remember that, after all, whether we look at it from the outside of Tunisia or from the inside, some feel that we have been very slow in making headway. Honestly, the time that we were allotted to come up with a new constitution was standard.
It's not over.
No, of course. But we are on the second draft now. This is the second draft.
How many will there be?
Well, that's it. The second was the subject of debate in plenary, and we are preparing the final step in the process, the final draft, which in all likelihood will be submitted to the National Constituent Assembly within a month. I think that in April, we will finish what has to be finished.
So in April, Tunisia will have a constitution?
I hope so, if we manage to achieve a consensus which will get 2/3 votes in favor. That is necessary. Otherwise, we'll have a first reading in April, a second in June, and I hope that it will not be necessary to go to a referendum.
But you're hopeful?
Always, yes.
Elections, we mentioned October. Here again, dates have been floated. Can you tell us when elections will be held?
You know, the timetable has been discussed over and over. It's something that is constantly mentioned in the media. But there is a traditional approach to this. We need to have a consensus to agree on the dates, on the timetable. Then the upper election body needs to be organized.
So why is it not in place?
Well, the law has been passed. We have called for applications, and we have received them, and we are going to elect this body very soon, within a month, perhaps 10 days.
So when do you expect elections?
We have consulted. It's not a personal type of answer. We have spoken with the parliamentary groups. I don't want to give you a scoop, but there is a consensus for the elections to take place between October and November. What I can guarantee today is that if everything follows its course, then the elections will be held in 2013.
In 2013, all elections?
Yes, yes, of course.
Very good. Do you know the Harlem Shake?
Well, I don't do it myself, but yes, of course, I'm familiar with it. I've heard about it. I've seen it a little bit on television these last few days. I think it's a positive symbol of the energy of young Tunisians. And if we could replace violence with the Harlem Shake, I think that would be great.
Well, that view is not necessarily shared by the Minister of Education, Abdelhatif. He so happens he's a member of your party, Katakol, and he started an investigation after the first video of high schoolers. He doesn't agree with your leniency.
Well, in terms of his responsibilities, he is particularly close to, keen on the proper approach to education in public
So
education.
he's mistaken?
I think yes, I think he was wrong. He perhaps was overzealous.
But don't you think that's a reflection? I mean, this debate's following others about what direction Tunisia should follow in terms of religion. Doesn't this highlight the fact that even secular parties, quote-unquote, have to up the ante to please the religious parties?
No, I don't think that's how it's taken at all. Abdelhatif Abid is the education minister. He is in charge of...
But not morals.
No, well, he is in charge of morals. Schools are not there for anything to take place within them. I understand his point of view, too. We have to think about the parents as well. We have to think about that. We have to think about public opinion. We never did any polling to find out what the trends are, but I think, broadly speaking, in terms of freedoms, there is a great deal of freedom, and we have to respect that freedom and not be overzealous. I think there was a reaction by young people. I think it was a bit non-standard for our society, but I think there was no need to be upset.
Final question, we started a bit with that. Chokri Belaid, the investigation, is it proceeding? We mentioned a Salafist connection. There were a few arrests. There's mention of a suspect, the killer on the run. What can you tell us?
No, the investigation has made headway, yes, definitely. I think it's moved forward quite quickly because it has been provided all necessary support. And I think that the Salafist suspicion has been confirmed. I think that this suspicion doesn't have any other real echoes, but I think the investigation will shed light on all of the different strings. And I think that the discretion shown by authorities has been shown mainly in order to provide the
Mustapha Ben Jaafar, thanks very much for giving us this interview. Thanks for watching. Stay with us for more.